Welcome, my future YouTubers. We're doing some learning today. Now, don't run away. Learning is fun. Talking about alt-right and reactionary dog whistles, hate symbols, that kind of thing. That's what we're doing here today. I'm going to start with a Medium article. It looks to be something that should have the information I'm looking for as far as a basic overview of dog whistles, hate symbols, that sort of thing. Particularly the, not necessarily a deep dive into the psychology behind it, but the basic psychology behind it. How do normal people become Nazis? How can reasonable people be led to harbor unreasonable and dangerous beliefs? The tactics white supremacists use are effective and working. This is an article that tries to make clear tactics involved in the subversive manipulation and how their actions of planting the roots of bigoted ideology often goes unnoticed. This is a guide for normies, centrists, and everyone else on how to spot the rhetoric in the wilds of the internet. It builds on my previous article, How White Nationalism Courts Internet Nerd Culture. We might look into that, because that is also important in combating, well, it sounds so melodramatic, but combating fascism. The images in this piece are going to be straight from the white nationalists themselves, their guides to each other on how to mainstream their ideas. Often they operate in groups, like Bugs or similar. There may be an outright Nazi that the other neo-Nazis point to in order to say, "Whoa, buddy, I'm not like that guy. What I say is reasonable and you should listen." By and large, the majority will never admit to holding and espousing neo-Nazi beliefs. The goal is to lead you into the pit until you don't want to get out, and then drop the charade to put upon the charade of put upon centrism. So yeah, number one rule with dealing with Nazis online is Nazis lie. So if you suspect the person you're dealing with is a Nazi, assume they're lying. It's really that simple. This hiding the true ideology under a layer of more acceptable talking points is called hiding power level. To deceive and recruit people, it is imperative that they can make a connection of trust first, and being outright in their beliefs would mean that they get dismissed before they have the chance to recruit. They are going to appeal to you. They are going to use things you like to make you empathize with them, and then over time they will slowly feed you the Whitaker mantras and white nationalist talking points. I ask you stay along for the read, even if you doubt me. Please keep in mind what the alt-right already know. Leftists will recognize dog whistles and know we're crypto-fascists, but normies won't listen to them. This is the number one issue with dog whistles. This is why they are so dangerous and so insidious. A dog whistle is something which seems innocuous. It seems totally innocent. Anyone could do it, say it, or mean it, and it has a legitimate meaning or usage. The best dog whistle, in my opinion, that the alt-right has created is the OK symbol. Because you can flash the OK symbol and you're just saying, hey, it's okay. Or you could be representing your power. And there's no way to tell the difference unless you have other evidence as to their beliefs. I.e., was it the Christchurch shooter who was throwing it down as he was getting hauled away in cuffs? Yeah. That's a context where you can say it, but there's a lot of other contexts where it's hard to say. This is what makes a perfect dog whistle. Don't get trapped in an echo chamber where you can no longer relate to normies. Pretending that Charlottesville didn't massively push the average white person away is really stupid. We have a chance to actually make changes now that Trump has shifted the Overton window to the right, but we need to be smart and make the movement appealing to the average white person. This is something the left also needs to learn. There's a lot of lefties who are just, they're still purity testing the left. And that's not how we win the culture war. I agree we need some standards, but like there's some people who want someone who's basically already a leftist to be joining the left. Disavow all Nazi KKK edgelord LARPers. There is no way to lose public support quicker than going around making Nazi salutes and holding wiki torches while chanting "Jews will not replace us." This instantly makes the average person hate you. Yes, this is true. If you have someone walking around in a Nazi uniform throwing up the Roman salute, that is either a psyop or someone who is so deranged as to be completely inefficacious, but probably still dangerous. Build a populist movement with realistic, incremental, overt goals, repealing the 1965 Immigration Act and repealing with something that both limits total immigration and prioritizes white immigration is an actual tangible political goal. Again, this is something lefties can learn from. Not the specific goal, but to come up with specific goals and to advocate for realistic incremental change. I see a lot of people who thought that Bernie was going to start the revolution. That's just not the case. But what he could do is create greater push to bring about more social democratic policies and create more class consciousness so that we could eventually, fire up the revolution sooner. Now, we'll see how this pandemic affects the economic situation. Keep the long-term goals covert and don't ever reveal your power level. Talking openly about a white ethno-state only leads to failure and the average public turning against you, so disavow anyone who reveals his power level. Leftists will recognize dog whistles and know we're crypto, but normies won't listen to them. Yes. Again, something lefties can learn from. Bernie did a lot to destigmatize socialism, the word socialism, but it's still something of a dirty word. I know I've argued against this in the past. I do think he did good in trying to destigmatize it, but I do think it's still largely a dirty word. So it is what is making the right so effective. Start first by focusing on multiculturalism, because it's a lot easier for people to see how non-white countries produce culture that is at odds with our values. People like Peter Thiel should be the voice of the alt-right, not cringe lords like Richard Spencer. I mean, they're not wrong that that is apparently an effective method of driving people towards the alt-right. It's completely wrong and stupid, but, they're fascists. What do you expect? Hold actual speeches with the media invited by intelligent and well-spoken speakers that can tailor their speech to the average person who has been brainwashed by egalitarianism their entire life. Get pro-white people into media and educational positions. Examine and copy the successful tactic of cultural Marxists. Liberal morality is deeply embedded in modern society, and it's going to take a long time to change that. Assuming you want to change that, which of course I don't. Well, I do want to change it, but I want to make it more liberal. If you actually want to gain mainstream appeal, the movement has to change to be positive and not just LARPing as KKK Nazis. Yes, a lot of alt-right people are really attached to the aesthetics of it, like a lot of left people, and don't understand that that is a big problem in attracting the so-called normies. The Soviet aesthetic is really sharp because it's an authoritarian regime and they tend to have really sharp outfits. But it's still a turnoff to most people because it puts them in mind not of organized, efficient government, which the Soviet Union also wasn't, but it puts them in mind of gulags and bread lines and people starving in the streets. It is the neo-Nazis' advantage to convince as many people as possible to push in their defense. Given Nazism is widely despised when it is easily spotted and blatant, neo-Nazis often hide among crowds for disguise and optics. If they can get other people around them duped into being the bulk of their arguing defense and normalizing work for them, then they are always winning. Ian Danskin discusses this camouflage in his video, An Autopsy on Gamergate. I think the same crowd dynamics applies as when discussing neo-Nazis and centrists online. This is an excellent video. It is 18 minutes long. It is a very good video. I recommend watching it. I will link it in the description. Ian Danskin is an excellent YouTuber. You should probably follow him after subscribing to me. And watch his alt-right playbook. Very useful information there, if you haven't already seen it. I sometimes fear that people think that fascism arrives in fancy dress worn by grotesques and monsters as played out in endless reruns of the Nazis. Fascism arrives as your friend. It will restore your honor, make you feel proud, protect your house, give you a job, clean up the neighborhood, remind you of how great you once were, clear out the venal and the corrupt, remove anything you feel is unlike you. It doesn't walk in saying our program means militias, mass imprisonment, transportation, war, and persecution. Neo-Nazis aside, they usually aren't going to be obvious about what they stand for when they are trying to woo you. This deception is referred to inside their circles as hiding your power level. It is masquerading as something else to lure people in and then slowly expose them to neo-Nazi propaganda. These hiding tactics range from false flags where they attack people while impersonating those they hate in order to drive people towards more radical groups, or silencing methods like telling people false information or pretending to be non-biased or hiding their identities, claiming they are normal, centrists, moderates, liberals. Whenever you see an article, tweet, post on normie media that makes you want to spurg out but you can't act for fear of revealing your power level, simply reply with the following statement. Thanks for pushing normal people even further to the right. If they try to start an argument, simply keep repeating, as I said, thanks for pushing normal people even further to the right, to whatever arguments they try to make. Whenever you see the comment, upvote like it. Goals: demoralization, make them realize that every action they take is counterproductive, subtly imply to bystanders that ordinary people are already right-wing. Remember, the major social currency among normies is conformity. If they believe that everybody else is moving right, so will they. This is a little more herd mentality that I'm okay with applying to normal people. But it is true that general consensus does shift very slowly. So you need to get a lot of people talking against the consensus to change it, and that can be very difficult. Let's see. Point out that the rise of the right is a consequence of the actions and voices of the left. Allegedly. Show the left and the normies that we are everywhere and that we are watching. Again, this plays into the normie desire to fit in. Right. Embolden those who are already on the right but are kept silent by fear of social repercussions. The comment is polite and violates no guidelines. They can't shut it down. True. Short comments are more likely to be read, often more so than the actual article post story. Create an atmosphere that discourages leftists to post in the first place. Every time I post there, I get into an argument. It sucks, dude. This is solid enough that you could even post it on real accounts. If you ever have to walk it back, just say, I am a leftist myself. It was sarcasm. I meant stuff like that damages our cause. Even then, the statement has value as a divide and conquer strategy, i.e. a real leftist doesn't believe that stuff. Why do you think Tim Pool has always styled himself as on the left? Or a member on the left criticizing the left? And yet all of his criticisms, all of his prescriptive statements seem to reinforce conservative, sometimes even fascistic results, consequences. Isn't that curious? It doesn't matter whether you believe any of the above or not. The purpose is to make them believe it. Discuss. Ignore divide and conquer shills and demoralization shills. Anybody who dismisses the plan without providing genuine criticism is a shill. Remember, anyone who doesn't agree with the plan is a shill. That's to be expected with their love of hierarchy, but, you know. Probably the most important part of neo-Nazi movements is rebranding. Neo-Nazi groups in public use coy terms to circumvent the much despised term Nazi. It is vital that they stay shifting and changing to avoid identification. Neo-Nazi is a term that just won't sell to the average Joe, so it needs to be changed to something more attractive like identitarian. The group rebrands under a different word while promoting the same neo-Nazi agenda in private. The terms change as time passes and more people catch on to what it exactly entails. Genocide. So the neo-Nazis switch from the terms that built a negative connotation to more benign or positive wording. Often the words chosen for the rebrand is meant to invoke things that are appealing to the public, such as science and freedom, but many are just ways of avoiding the Nazi word. Such rebrands are white nationalist, white supremacist, ethno-statist, states' rights, race realist, racial science believer, identitarian, racial isolationist, alt-right, whites' rights activist, fascist, neo-fascist, National Socialist, Segregationist, Traditionalist, Nationalist, Christian Nationalist, Ethno-Nationalist, Demographic Nationalist, human biodiversity advocate, demographic preservationist, Western chauvinist, neo-reactionary, nativist, isolationist, America first, anti-multicultural, anti-globalist, anti-miscegenation, anti-PC, anti-SJW, paleo-conservative, Catholic conservative. So this is a handbook to recognize when Nazis are dog whistling or talking around you or trying to talk to you, using screenshots from actual Nazis talking about how to attract and convert people. This constant repackaging of the same toxic ideology is in new colorful wrappings, has been going on for decades, and is intentionally done to make it confusing and hard for normal folks to keep up with and identify. Neo-Nazism has to mask itself. This is what people refer to as being crypto or crypto-fascism or hiding power level. And then the contrast of before the Southern strategy and after the Southern strategy. Negroes not wanted in the North or South, send them back to Africa where God Almighty put them to begin with. That is their home. Yeah. And then, of course, this famous phrase that describes the Southern strategy. You start out in 1954 by saying N-word, N-word, N-word. By 1968, you can't say N-word. That hurts you. Backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract. Now you're talking about cutting taxes. All these things that you're talking about are totally economic things. And a byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. We want to cut this is so much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than N-word, N-word. So this is why they're so good at dog whistling. They've been doing it for 40, 50 years. And here, of course, we see some actual Nazi propaganda. And then the 2018, it's just a meme, bro. Who was George Washington? Some old cracker. Who was Thomas Jefferson? Another punk-ass Peckerwood. Who was Benjamin Franklin? That N-word on the $100 bill. What year did Columbus discover America? Man, I don't know. What do we celebrate on the 4th of July? Fireworks and shit. And then you have the greedy merchant, I believe is what this is called, giving a diploma to a very racist caricature. And, of course, this is to show using the same propaganda. Do you hate SJWs, those nebulous ne'er-do-wells of the internet? They're ascribed to killing everything from video games to society itself. Ain't it the truth? The term SJW is largely useless as it has been applied to pretty much anyone as a means of marking them as bad, and their points as bad. But neo-Nazis are opportunists and have taken use of SJW and other words to rally people to their sides. Of course, we have Anita Sarkeesian here with the... If you ever see someone with an overlarge nose, there's a 99.99% chance that it's a Nazi dog whistle. Like, in a drawing or something like this. I mean, potentially someone could just have a large nose and that's a caricature, but when you see something, particularly if they're talking about SJWs, again, this is what all the context matters. The big nose is a big giveaway that you're looking at Nazi propaganda. Yeah. F you, Trump. Trump is Hitler. My feelings matter. Shut up, racist. Vote for Bernie. We want open borders. Trump is the KKK. The implication here is fat cats are creating this megaphone for the SJWs. They're funding it even though they don't believe it. Or maybe don't believe it. Who knows? Use of because the idea is a certain ethnic group or religious group is in charge of society or want to be in charge of society, and they're using SJWs to enact their agenda of stigmatizing masculinity in order to weaken society so they can take it over with their feminism and cultural Marxism. That's the whole Nazi belief in a nutshell. So why are SJWs trying to destroy everything that, good regular folk like fancy or violent video games and with sexy women in violent movies, or trying to put women in everything that was previously men, because they want to weaken society to the point where they can take over with no resistance. That's literally what they believe. Use of identifiable enemies is common. Often neo-Nazis steal enemies to build upon their other past reactionary movements, catering their sales pitch in order to groom more people in. They find common enemy. They find what the intended recruit group hates, and then build the bridge from that enemy towards the white nationalists' identified enemies. This is something that we on the left can use as well, particularly going into this election. It seems like, so we all know the joke, that you scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds, and that liberals hate socialists more than fascists. It seems like, and I know I'm not the first to make this observation, but it seems like socialists hate liberals more than fascists. When what we can do is we can unite with liberals who will work with us to defeat the fascists, and in so doing potentially get some recruits to our side from the liberals. Because there's not enough socialists to challenge both the liberals and the fascists. So we got to work with one of them, and I'm not working with fascism. And the number of Bernie or bust people who are, at least they claim to be on the left, but they're willing to essentially agree to the rule of a fascist is worrying to me. They find what the intended recruit group hates and then build the bridge from that enemy towards the white nationalists' identified enemies. This is why so much, so if we go to images, we should see there's let's see. There's a really good, so basically there are justifications to connect just about any group in power to the Jews, according to these people, according to Nazis. And in so doing, they allow you to create they allow the Nazis to convince people who aren't convinced the Jews are the problem, that Jews actually are the problem. That is most visibly obvious in using the globalists and SJW as a dog whistle for Jews. Yes, and again, since Jews are largely involved in banking for a variety of historical reasons, not the least of which that literally only Jews could practice what we now recognize in banking for hundreds of years because it was against the rules of the church. Like, that's going to have an impact on established banking once Christians were finally allowed to do it. But it's not some conspiracy. It's just the material conditions. Again, this is why teaching critical theory and historic materialism are very important to countering narratives, because when you recognize what came before, what events led up to a situation, it's harder for them to convince you of the bullshit, because that's all they have is bullshit. Bad faith, time-wasting debates online that are for the purpose of exhausting, fatiguing the opponent and everyone around them. These often use the Gish Gallop, flooding a conversation en masse with individually weak arguments in order to make it incredibly exerting and tedious to debunk all of them. A refutation of the Gish Gallop bogs down and takes time as often they demand immaculate citation, and any single argument out of the torrent not debunked will be claimed to cast doubt on the entire refutation. This is the rapid fire throws out 5 or 6 arguments, you refute 4 or 5 of them, and they say, aha, but you couldn't refute this, so it all falls apart. Typically you get not involved people wallowing in with, I'm tired of hearing about neo-Nazis. Yes, we all are, but they still exist and are a threat to the life and safety of people in our communities, so just giving up is a lazy option. The whole thing is a public performance by the neo-Nazi. They aren't there to necessarily win you over, but to woo anyone else who skims by the conversation. And remember that when you're arguing with a neo-Nazi, it's not a great argument to just say, yeah, but you're a Nazi. Because they can just say, no, I'm not. I'm an identitarian. I'm a racial realist. I'm whatever that other dozens of names we read earlier. So you have to explain why their arguments and their goals are bad. But don't make the mistake of trying to make of stating your opponent's position for them. Because if you say, well, you believe X, that gives them free rein to believe anything just before X and turn it around on you. Because remember, Nazis lie. Tactics for Effective Conservative Blogging by Karl Rove. Oh yeah, they aren't there to necessarily win you over, but to anyone else who skims by the conversation. Yes, the internet blood sports debates like that, which I'm hoping to get involved in soon, are not about convincing the opponent. It is very unlikely that a Nazi is going to come in here and convince me that I am wrong. If they did, it would completely upend my entire worldview. But there are certain things I'm willing to be convinced on that aren't tied to my worldview. But I'm also not going to assume I'm going to convince the Nazi of the error of their ways. However, if the Nazi is on here and has any friends who are watching, like, haha, watch me own this soy boy cuck leftist, then my arguments could get through to them. Or on the other side, their arguments could get through to people who are watching me. Hopefully that's unlikely, but it all depends on how solid in your beliefs, how grounded your axioms are. The point is to appear informed and correct to onlookers while intentionally overwhelming and demoralizing people with bad faith, time-wasting arguments. Yes, because if you're rapid-fire giving out arguments, telling people, what about this, what about that, what about this, what about that, and all your opponent can say, well, but this and that and that, but you didn't talk about this. Sorry, cuz they won the argument in the eyes of most onlookers. Because they were confident, they knew what they were talking about, and you couldn't refute every point. That's not how real debates work, but that's how online blood sports debates work. So, Tactics for Effective Conservative Blogging by Karl Rove. And if you don't know who Karl Rove is, oh boy. Karl Rove was the advisor to W and a number of other conservative politicians. And he was infamous for using tactics of, well, what we're about to see here. Just completely, probably his most famous tactics is the swift boating, where they basically turned John Kerry's time in Vietnam into a negative, when military service would have been a positive for literally any other election. So, yeah. Demand an elaborate, time-consuming comparison analysis between your position and theirs. Entangle. Insist that the liberal put their posts in their own words. That will consume the most time and effort for the liberal poster. They will be unable to spread numerous points on numerous blogs if you have them occupied. Allowing a liberal to post a web link is too quick and efficient for them. Tie them up. We are going to delay of game here. Demoralize. Dismiss their narrative as rubbish immediately. Do not even read it. Once the liberal goes through the trouble to research, gather, collate, compose, and write their narrative, your job is to discredit it. Make it obvious you toss their labor-intensive narrative aside like garbage. This will have the effect of demoralizing the liberal poster. It will make them unwilling to expend the effort again. And for us, that is a net win. Attack the source. Any liberal website or information source must be marginalized, trivialized, and discounted. Let the blogosphere know that truthout.org, thinkpress.org, The Nation and MoveOn.org are liberal rubbish propaganda. Discredit liberal sources of information whenever possible. Challenge the liberal position with questions, always questions. The questions need not be relevant. The goal is to knock the liberal poster off their game and seize control of the narrative. Once you have control, you can direct the narrative to where you want it to go, which is always away from letting the liberal make their point. Conversely, do not respond to their questions, don't rise to their bait. Your job is to prevent the presentation and spread of liberal viewpoints. Do anything you must do to prevent a liberal poster from presenting a well-reasoned argument or starting a civil discussion. Don't allow a liberal to present their dogma unchallenged, ever. So the idea here is whenever a liberal comes to your blog and disagrees with you, the conservative blogger is supposed to ask them for very specific, elaborate analyses and disagreements. And whenever they come back with something, it's not enough. It's never enough. I don't trust that source. I don't understand. Ask random idiotic questions. Many neo-Nazis spread their beliefs in disguise across websites where others read it, pick it up, and carry it unknowing of the source of what they are repeating. Sometimes even believing that the neo-Nazi rhetoric they repeat is actually their own original ideas that they came up with wholly on their own. Well, when populations are isolated to a certain extent, there is a lack of gene flow, which both goes against and in favor of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. That has only happened on a small scale until colonialism, and even then it isn't happening on as big a scale as it is today with the Great Replacement that is happening in Europe and America. The Great Replacement is another, it's not even a dog whistle at this point, it's just a conspiracy theory that there's a conspiracy among a certain group, usually the Jews, who are trying to replace white people with non-white people. Except the genes flow all over the world between populations and have done so for thousands of years, watering down those white genes. There is no such thing as the Great Replacement, white genocide. Who is telling you neo-Nazi talking points? What do you mean telling me? What do you mean telling me? And this isn't neo-Nazi, but since my anti-Semitism, I guess it is. The Great Replacement was coined by Bugs as a neo-Nazi dissemination group. I thought I had made up that term just now. Just because you are unaware of the origins of the information you spread doesn't mean I am unaware. No, you did not make the term up. Coincidences happen. They're faced when you deny white genocide because it's racist. These aren't good outlets for info, TBH. I'm more annoyed at Sage being this new meme lord. What have I created? It wasn't just you, it was science. Who's orchestrated this genocide against whites? In history class, and also having a brain. You two never stop sucking each other's dicks. It's relentless. IDK, when did we decide that letting mass droves of Arabs into Europe was our purpose? Exactly. Also covering up crimes committed by them? Shaming us for our history? Digs and birds aren't comparable to human beings like I've told you before. I think this is supposed to be bugs. Human beings are a species that exists with overlapping gradients that has existed for a very short span of time. You hang out with people like that and believe dog breeds are comparable to humans, you're not moderate. Yeah. If you believe that human beings can be analogized to dog breeds, you have a problem. That was a bad representation of the people you hang out with now. Not that you're center-left. You aren't. It's that you've been unironically reposting neo-Nazi propaganda here, unwittingly or perhaps full well knowing what it is, I can't be sure. What neo-Nazi propaganda are you referring to, Red? If you missed it, shut up and I'll talk to you later because right now isn't about you, man. I'm curious if it's actually Nazi propaganda or just random shit off Republican pages. Leftists tend to generalize the two together. Got it? The defending Europa, return to tradition, IQ deals with race, etc. And then the fact that I'm in good relations with Olive Drab, that alone screams Nazi. I don't give a fuck about Olive Drab. I'm talking about you, spouting neo-Nazi bugs, mantras, and posting Stormfront images. Just go sit in the corner, you're giving me a headache. Somewhere adults have failed you, and you've picked up some very nasty false information and dug in deeper. This is how it works. You don't present them as neo-Nazi ideas, you just present them as good ideas. And by presenting them as good ideas, people start accepting them, and they don't believe that they're Nazi ideology, even though they demonstrably are. Asia for the Asians, Africa for the Africans, white countries for everybody. Everybody says there's this race problem. Everybody says this race problem will be solved when the third world pours into every white country and only into white countries. No, it's just white countries tend to be the wealthiest and most able to handle immigrants. I mean, Japan could also handle immigrants, but they're a tiny nation. The Netherlands and Belgium are just as crowded as Japan or Taiwan, but nobody says Japan or Taiwan will solve this race problem by bringing in millions of third worlders and, quote, assimilating, unquote, with them. What if I said there was this race problem, and this race problem would be solved only if hundreds of millions of non-blacks were brought into every black country and only into black countries? How long would it take anyone to realize I'm not talking about a race problem, I am talking about the final solution to the black problem? And how long would it take any sane black man to notice this? And what kind of psycho black man wouldn't object to this? But if I tell that obvious truth about the ongoing program of genocide against any race, against my race, the white race, liberals and respectable conservatives agree that I am a Nazi who wants to kill 6 million Jews. They say they are anti-racist. What they are is anti-white. Anti-racist is a code word for anti-white. Everyone talks, they're pushing white genocide. They claim they are anti-race. Yeah, this is the same. Okay, yeah. These are common copy pastas, mantras, videos, and dog whistles that neo-Nazis lay like breadcrumbs across the internet. You'll come across these things everywhere. Sometimes they are co-opted phrases stolen from other reactionary movements in efforts to merge and appeal to those groups. For example, when a neo-Nazi talks about feminism destroying white families, they will often reword it as feminists and SJWs ruining, insert whatever the person they are talking to cares about. It's also a common tactic to work in organized groups for spamming comments. Entire forums and group chats exist to run backup and signal boosting. Common rhetoric tactics: SJW's feminism, appeals to the status quo, appeal to law and order. Azov is volunteer police. The Charlottesville rally had a permit. Gay culture is destroying our freedom of religion. No, it's destroying your monopoly on one particular civil act. Claiming the person being appealed to is in some form of risk and must join the neo-Nazi speaker for their self-defense from an enemy, usually SJWs. The blank are coming to take your blank. Red herring: communism killed 100 million people. Antifa did blank. Derailment to drown out any discussion of their acts of murder and violence and control the conversation to talk about and highlight other violence. Lügenpresse, lying press. Blank source of information is lying. This one is as old as Goebbels, as the Nazi minister of propaganda. Straw man, an intentionally misrepresented proposition that is set up because it is easier to defeat than an opponent's real argument. Antifa, and opposing fascism is evil. Anti-fascists are the real fascists, man. Andy No special there. Tu quoque. Antifa is also violent. If you don't let us say blank, then you're also killing free speech. Yeah, anyone who describes themselves as a free speech absolutist at this stage is either fash or fash-enabling, even if they don't realize it. Misleading statistics, usually racial statistics from debunked studies done 80 years ago, cherry-picked crime data. This is the 1350 meme we'll get to in a minute. Bogus science mixed with taking real science out of context. Darwinism, biological determinism, race realism, phrenology, and racially based IQ. False cause, wrongfully attributing something as the cause. You talking about blank only causes them to be stronger. Attacking Nazis is what makes people be Nazis. We know the Nib comic where my God, these Trump people are racist. That attitude is what's pushing me to be racist. Say what? Might as well. You say I'm a Nazi, so fine. I'll be a Nazi if that makes you happy. It doesn't. I bought this Waffen-SS uniform for Halloween. You'll cry offensive, so maybe I'll just wear it every day. I just hate to do this. I feel bullied. Really. Matt Boers is a great dude and a comrade. Gish Gallop, time-wasting strategy to drown the opponent in massive waves of argumentative claims. We already talked about that one. The non sequitur. This is one of their favorites, a conclusion that does not follow from the statements that lead to it. This is like looking at the crime statistics and saying black people commit 50% of all crime, or something stupid like that. Fallacy of reification, National Socialist. Socialist means they were left-wing. Loaded question contains a presupposition or unproven assumption that can make it difficult to give an answer that doesn't support the questioner's premise. You always support violence? So you hate free speech? Yes, I hate free speech. I demand regulated speech as regulated by the people. No true Scotsman, claiming any related murders, stabbings, beatings, or other violence perpetrated by white supremacists doesn't apply as they are not truly part of the white nationalist movement. See Anders Breivik, Alex Fields, Samuel Woodward, Brandon Russell. Yeah, again, this goes back to deny LARPers. If someone commits violence and there's all sorts of evidence that it's because they were radicalized by 4chan, or before it was taken down 8chan, or Ben Shapiro, or Paul Joseph Watson. Oh, they weren't truly part of the movement. They were an extreme outlier. Or they try to shift it off as leftist. Immigration fear-mongering, Islamophobia, race-baiting, white genocide, great replacement, whites have a right to exist, faith, folk, family. Remember, this was a German phrase used by the Nazis. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children, the 14 words. Asia for the Asians, Africa for the Africans, white nations for white people. Political correctness and thought police, often used to silence an opponent or draw unwitting others to their defense. A new one is the ethics department. Often people like the Quartering will talk about the ethics department of these companies, and that's why they can't make their video games or movies or what have you. Postmodernism, cultural Marxism, popular boogeymen terms that don't really have substance or clear meaning and are easy applied to anyone and anything they don't like. Diversity quotas. Fear-mongering appeal towards white men saying that their jobs, opportunities, livelihoods are being stolen and given to those less worthy, meaning brown people and women. Frankfurt School, commonly cited as part of anti-Semitic neo-Nazi conspiracies about shadowy powers controlling the world via secret elite intellectuals. See also deep state, globalist, New World Order type conspiracies. It's all just new, more appealing ways to say Jews. Yeah. It's amazing the levels they'll go to mass just saying Jews. Argumentum ad speculum. Hypothetical examples that are factually incorrect are used to prop up the incorrect assumption. Invocations about how not allowing hate speech will lead to horrible outcomes usually relies on this. Are you still with me, centrists? Centrists, buddies, you cannot solely focus your time criticizing the left. I rarely see centrists, moderates, or conservatives speaking out against white supremacists. Your silence against white supremacists in its myriad forms supports rising voluntary reactionary movements. More often I see so-called self-identified centrists obliviously repeating the mantras and jargon that neo-Nazis pepper the internet with. When you unevenly direct your time to only tearing down the left, you aren't being a centrist because you're not balanced centrally between the right and the left. When you jump into conversations that you are ignorant about and accidentally defend neo-Nazis, you are doing their work for them. You want to work for neo-Nazis? No? Then fucking stop! Please be more discerning and less knee-jerk about who and what you spend your time defending. Don't rush in at the first waving of an appealing dog whistle. Be smart and don't do a neo-Nazi's dirty work for them. So, where's this Nazi? You have to look with your eyes, because the wolf in the Avatar is wearing a Nazi hat, duder, and I know this guy. He wants ethnic cleansing and believes other races to be inferior. Oh shit, you're right. And by Nazi, of course, you mean any human being with a different opinion other than yours. Because heaven help anybody willing to speak their mind at the risk of offending some special little snowflake like yourself. Do you not see the little Nazi hat on the wolf in the Avatar? The dude has professed he wants a whites-only ethno-state and that other races are inferior. Oh, I didn't see that hat. I thought you were just using the phrase Nazi as in the SJW term of people who disagree with a certain opinion. No, and when you say things like you did, you are often defending real Nazis. You need to be more careful who you spend your time white knighting for, and certainly don't waste your efforts when you're oblivious in the situation, because then you end up defending actual goddamn Nazis. Yeah, again, most neo-Nazis are better at hiding their power level and won't be seen with obvious tells like Nazi SS hats on their avatars. The following screen caps are for the most part self-explanatory. Here we have a neo-Nazi discussing the process steps in a how-to guide for slowly radicalizing normies called red pilling. Hungover guide to red pilling absolute normies. The last thing you want to do is name the Jew right away. Not only will he reject it, he will no longer take anything you say seriously. Start with mentioning how it's kind of weird that all white countries are becoming diverse and only white countries. Also mention the anti-white double standard, as in why is only white identity considered evil? Why are only whites blamed for slavery? So to answer, I mean, this one is just a guide, a title. This is true because people recognize anti-Semitism. How it's kind of weird that all white countries are becoming diverse and only white countries. This is because we don't really look at the diversity of non-white nations. And we do talk about nations like Japan and their lack of diversity, but we also look at wealthy nations, and white nations tend to be the wealthiest. I mean, outside of the Middle East, of course. But it's also a fact that, and this is something that can often be used by white nationalists, white nations tend to be the freest. I mean, China is also quite a wealthy nation that could take immigrants, but they're authoritarian. And Japan has its own issues. They're not as authoritarian, but there are people pressuring Japan to take immigrants. Just like the Netherlands, just like every other wealthy nation. Saudi Arabia is also quite wealthy, but they're also a fucking monarchy. A theocracy, really. And no one considers only the white identity evil. It's just the white identity has been used throughout history to cause harm to people, to societies. It's not just white people, and it's not always white people, but traditionally white people are the problem. And whites aren't only blamed for slavery, but they're the ones who benefited from it the most. You might now want to wait a few days before continuing. Let him think about it. Let those ideas sink in Paul Joseph Watson style. Oh, but Paul Joseph Watson doesn't support fascism. He's not a white nationalist. Oh, no. Happy merchant memes can be normie friendly. They subconsciously erode their resistance to anti-Semitism. Dad? Japan has weird ethno-nationalist tendencies, but even they are having to open up due to population decline? Yeah. I talked about that a little bit yesterday. We went over a Black Pigeon Speaks video where he talked about the unity of the Japanese people and how it was their lack of diversity that allowed that and how all that was a good thing. Yeah. Very isolationist, the Japanese, so it is leading to problems. Dad, can I borrow $50? $30? What do you need $20 for? I can't believe my own son is demanding my last $10. Hello, police, a madman is trying to kill me over $5. You'll be hearing from my lawyer about that $50 you still owe me. I mean, this isn't funny, but it definitely reinforces that Jewish idea without making any specific statements. What, you think that looks like a Jew? Are you anti-Semitic? Are you a Nazi? You think anyone with a big nose is Jewish? I can't believe it. I thought I knew you. Normies must notice that the media pushes a biased PC narrative. Fucking Jews. PJW videos like this one are good. Let's see which one that is.
After every single Islamist terror attack, we're subject to...
Imagine my shock. It is crucial to observe the normie's reaction to PJW videos. If he resists Paul Joseph Watson, you cannot proceed yet. This is organized really poorly. It is very useful to show him some funny memes every now and then. They subconsciously chip away at the brainwash. Yeah. I believe this is referred to as Tyrone, goes back in time, shoots the slave masters to save his slave ancestors, comes back in time, and the place is a wasteland. And he doesn't have his fried chicken or watermelon. Again, not funny, but makes the point. You must judge how much racism or anti-Semitism he can take from a meme. Memes have to be slightly spicy. This one is too much for a normie. Yeah, Ben Garrison is usually a little too over the top. I am God's chosen people, you filthy goyim. We're supposed to die for this guy? Yeah. There's actually not nearly enough labels. I don't think that's a real Ben Garrison. The Islam red pill is very important. It is one of the first red pills a normie must take. You'll realize people are being lied to. Also, he will get angry at Muslims. That is good. Some anger towards kebabs is very healthy. He will get angry at people who defend them. Yeah, this was what Gamergate did. This was what a lot of people are trying to do in the alt-right these days, is to create a situation where people believe you and defend you and about the racist or sexist or whatever bigoted beliefs you have, but they don't realize that they're bigoted in whatever way. So they create normies who defend them without realizing what they're defending. Other alt-lighters who mock liberals and criticize PC are very useful as well. Gavin is generally very effective. Let's see which Gavin video this is. If Gavin is still on YouTube, I don't know. Pretty sure he is. That is, it should be Gavin McInnes, aka founder of the Proud Boys. I mean, this is a 5-year-old video. Al-Taqiyya is the art of using lies and deception to promote Islam. Here in the West, we are so petrified of defending Islam, all they have to do is sort of pretend that someone may have slighted them, and we all drop to our knees and start apologizing. Yeah. I mean, that's not even really a dog whistle at that point. This step from normie to alt-light is the most important one. It is also the hardest. You must be patient. It can even last months. Many normies never even make it to alt-light. The ones who do are as good as red-pilled. Alt-lighters notice problems and coincidences. Now that your friend is alt-light, unless he is black, you might try kindling some racism in him. Tyrone memes are funny and feel good too. Yeah. Shit, Tyrone, get it together! Because, of course, yeah, we know what this is dog whistling, right? A bit of racism is nothing but an indicator of a healthy, unbrainwashed brain. Keeps you and your loved ones safe. As if unbrainwashed is the non-default state. This is really, really poorly organized. Before your alt-light friend evolves into his final Nazi form, you must train him. Find the occasion for each different red pill. So we got number 20, and 21 and 22 are down here. Race realism is mandatory. Without this, you will never evolve into an evil Nazi. This Jared Taylor video is great. You must understand that Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't mean Africans aren't dumb on average. This will make him disavow civic nationalism. This is something a lot of Nazis will do, is they will disavow civic nationalism, nationalism to a state. I'm not sure why it's not any better than ethno-nationalism. When your alt-light friend is trained on all important matters, you must now slowly insert the JQ. Hey man, I think I know where the anti-white double standard comes from. I think it's Jews. Act like you're trying to figure it out. I saw some guy explaining that they own all media and historically resent Westerners. They do not consider themselves white, actually. I heard some guy say they diversify white countries so as to avoid the hostility they have historically gotten from homogenous ones. Yeah, this hostility they have gotten has been due to already existent anti-Semitism. Because Jews were the villains of Europe for hundreds of years because they killed Christ, don't you know? Show him info and act like you two are trying to figure it out. Leave him to think about it, then come back later with more. That is useless. So this is a list of all these groups which are allegedly or legitimately Jewish. And this is the problem with having a lot of what's the word? Yeah. Jews were the whipping boys of medieval Europe. But they managed to acquire a good deal of generational wealth. And so we're able to move into banking. And that's why there's a lot of Jews in banking. Not a disproportionate number, as people say, but there's been a lot of attacks against Jews over the centuries. Again, material conditions are important for learning about why a situation is what it is. Also, they're mostly just because Israel is important. They ended up in banking. That's true as well. I already mentioned that. They were the only ones who could engage in banking in Europe, which is also part of why they were persecuted. Because they were engaging in that awful practice of usury. If he is responding well and showing interest, then you can proceed with the Holocaust. This is the go-to video. The Holocaust is key because it keeps people from looking at World War II objectively. The normie must see how retarded the Holocaust story is. As long as people believe in the Holocaust, they will think, okay, whatever, good thing the Nazis lost, they were so evil. If you manage to sit him through the Pastor Anderson video, there's no way he'll still believe the Holocaust. I assume that's this video here. Let's see how long it is. We might watch it I'll get pilled on the Holocaust. Having two monitors is so convenient. Oh, what a shame. What a crying shame. Now that you're on the fucking Jews phase, you can explain how PC is cultural Marxism, which is of Jewish origin. You can explain how the EU, echoes, is trying to erode nation states away using mass immigration. How globalism is Jewish. You can explain how Jews taking over countries is the main conflict behind World War II. It really, really wasn't. How communism was Jewish. It really, really wasn't. At this point, you can drop, you know what, man? I'm starting to think maybe Hitler was the good guy. Boom! Hitler did nothing wrong. Bam! So just what have those great humanitarians, the Jews, been pouring into the well of white culture over the past century? Yeah, remember that Nazis, for some of the most degenerate fuckheads in existence, are really obsessive about degeneracy and think that it is exactly the problem. So, I want to go over the ADL, which is usually discredited by Nazis as a Zionist organization, because I believe they do have ties to, like they take money from Jewish organizations, because every fucking company in America takes money from Jewish organizations. But they're a very good resource for identifying particularly Nazi and anti-Semitic symbols. Now, a lot of these symbols, especially in this early part where it's just the numbers, because obviously this is arranged alphabetically. 111 is used by the Aryan Knights, A and K. This is a very common thing among hate groups. Is replacing the numbers with letters. 12 is AB, 111 is AK, the Aryan Knights. 100% for 100% white, sometimes changed to 112 for 100% Aryan Brotherhood. This is referencing another Nazi dog whistle, the number of nations or states that Jews were expelled from. 109, 110 representing the US. 1352, 1390, these are representative of 13% of the population commits 50% of the murders, or 90% of all violent interracial crime. Notice that qualifier, interracial. 14 is shorthand for the 14 words. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. 18 is white supremacist alphanumeric code for Adolf Hitler, AH. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. If you see someone you suspect is a white nationalist and they have numbers tattooed on them, probably means something. 23, hand sign, symbol for W, meaning white. 2316, the number combination 2316 is a numeric symbol used by white supremacists, particularly common on the West Coast. Substituting letters for numbers, the 2316 equates to white WP, white power. 311, the 11th letter of the alphabet is K, 3 Ks, 311. ACAB is a leftist slogan that can be adopted by fascists because they love adopting fascist or leftist rhetoric. As well as because non-racist skinheads, this is an interesting way of phrasing it because it's not just non-racist skinheads, it's a leftist term. It's an anarchist term. Alabama Aryan Brotherhood. Aryan Brotherhood is huge. It's all over. American Identity Movement. I also have, this is I'll be sure to link this in the description. So all these different symbols, and I'll briefly go through. And the Aryan, like I said, Aryan Brotherhood is everywhere. See, AB, it's probably bad. Large and violent racist prison gang uses a hand symbol consisting of a raised. Oh, that fucking took the 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink, fuckers. Yeah, fascists ruin everything. Aryan Cowboy Brotherhood, Aryan Fist, Aryan Knights, Aryan Nations. Oh boy. I wonder if these people realize that Aryan comes from Iran in that area. Atomwaffen Division is a very influential alt-right group that engages in all sorts of shitty shit. Blue-Eyed Devils, Blut und Ehre. Blood and Honor, popularized by the Nazi Party as a Hitler Youth slogan in other places. Yeah, racist skinheads prefer wearing steel-toed work boots, typically with red or white shoelaces laced in a certain way. Bound for Glory, and I know that the Thor's hammer symbol has been appropriated by white nationalists, unfortunately. The bowl cut is an image of a bowl-shaped haircut resembling the one sported by white supremacist mass killer Dylan Roof. People who use the bowl cut image or other bowl references admire Roof and call for others to emulate his racist murders. So yeah. The Burning Cross, we all know that. Burning Swastika. Celtic Cross. Oftentimes, if you see a political rally and you see any kind of Celtic or Nordic runic symbol, it's probably a fascist. I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of how it works out. Day of the Rope is another common dog whistle. Diversity equals white genocide. The Echoes, European kindred. Yeah, white nationalists have a weird relationship with Iran. Like Richard Spencer said he would support Iran in a war because he believes the US would be fighting on behalf of Israel. Yeah, fascists are incoherent. The fascies from Italy. Featherwood, a word deriving from the related term peckerwood. The racist... Oh, okay. So this is a symbol you put on your prison bitch to represent she belongs to you. For God, Race, and Nation. Firm 22. Free America rally. Golden State Solidarity, California Race Skinhead Group, Gas the Race War Now. Yeah. Hate. When you want to be subtle but not so subtle. Just get hate tattooed on yourself. Just be out there and open. Hammerskins forever. So I used to watch, there used to be a show on the History Channel called Gangland, yes. Back when the History Channel had good shit on it. And one of the things they did in Gangland was they went through all of the different symbols and tattoos that these gangs would use. And every single one of them seemed to use some variant of this. Angels forever, forever angels. Outlaws forever, forever outlaws. This is super common that if you see letter FF letter, this is almost certainly what it means. The Nazi or Hitler salute, yeah, we know that's a symbol. Yeah, identitarian lambda. Again, if you see almost any kind of Celtic or runic or Nordic symbol, it's probably a white nationalist. And it sucks because some stuff looks so cool. Iron Cross, it's okay to be white. Yeah, the Klan are a bunch of LARPers who are unfortunately very politically effective. Okay, angling your fingers so it looks like a K. And of course, Klan robes. Klan robes are racist? No. Holocaust is an anti-Semitic phrase popular with the alt-right. Yeah. Anything is, of course, the online meme about someone who's just using it as basically a virtue signal. National Socialist Legion, National Socialist Movement. That the Nazi eagle is racist? No. I mean, we make fun of these, like the Nazi party flag, but it has to be said that these are still being used. Like, they've often been used as... they're used less often now, but still people pull them out when they think they don't have to dog whistle. The new Black Panther Party for self-defense, not related to the original Black Panther Party, who were Maoists, is the most extreme, organized, racist, and anti-Semitic African-American group in the United States. So yeah, the new Black Panther Party is not the old Black Panther Party. NSM, they used to have a swastika on this flag, realized it was too on the nose, so switched to this rune here. Aryan Brotherhood, the OK hand gesture. Yeah. So yeah, and then Rational Wiki, which has its issues, but when it's talking about fascists, it's usually pretty on the money. Has some more milk. Milk never really took off as a dog whistle, but it is used from time to time, of course. And frog is pretty discredited as a symbol of the alt-right. The left has largely reclaimed it. Clown world, this is a common one. The pine tree, Nordic roots. These are often used in, like, Twitter profiles and shit like that. So, yeah, 3%ers, far-right militia movement. The name derives from the erroneous idea that 3% of the population of able-bodied men, the 13 colonies, fought against the British Empire during the American Revolution. The actual percentage was closer to 15%. 3%ers are part of the alt-right by dint of their having provided security at the 2017 Unite the Right rally. So as you can see, there's a lot of symbols, a lot of things that you need to know. And it can be a lot to take in. It's important to just kind of get a general idea. There's going to be things that are common. Like I said, commonly runes or Celtic or Nordic symbols are common. Big noses are another common thing. The clown of Clown World is, like right here, this is another common one. Familiarize yourself with a lot of these symbols and you will be able to spot the Nazis and hopefully help them from spreading. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you. See you next time.